Shalom. On shall I giving all praises, glory, and honor to Yahweh, Bahashem, Yahweh Shai, Bahashem, Makakadash. I want to give double honors to the apostles and elders of Great Millstone. A salutation to the hopefully elect that is pushing this word in the four corners, the highways and byways. Once again, all praises, glory, and honor is due to Yahweh, Bahashem, Yahweh Shai, Bahashem, Makakadash. Alright? Hey, this is Brother Zakaria here with another lesson, and this lesson gonna be entitled "There be many that went out of their wits for women," something like that, right? As the scriptures say, some men will rob and steal and kill for a woman, whether it be to impress that woman, right? Take her on trips or whatever, or in whatever way, right? So let me just get right into it. This is an article here from News Source Guyana. It says an accountant who's in charge of accounts payable at a major telecommunication company has been arrested and is facing questioning over the theft of more than 153.9 million from the company. Businessman and accountant Quincy Beard was taken into police custody on Tuesday and remains in custody as the Criminal Investigation Department probes the multi-million-dollar heist, right? Now, this fellow is a popular influencer, right? And as you could see, he's being alleged of somewhat assisting, whether it be by himself or aiding with others to steal over 153.9 million from a major telecommunication company, right? Now, the reason why this fellow is a part of our lesson here today, or is the focus of the lesson here today, is because earlier in the year, this year, it's being alleged that he steal somebody's girl. Let me put it that way, right? Basically use his status and money to lure someone else's girl away from him, right? And now it's coming out that a lot of this money that he was spending might have been stolen. All right, like I said, is being alleged, right? Right, and that's what the scripture talk about, right? Men will go out of their wits for women, right? Because first of all, you're not supposed to be, talking with nobody else's girl in that manner, right? Which he came out on video on an interview and say that while this person was still with somebody, so now it's coming out, all right? The hidden things are coming out that, hey, this fellow might have been, stealing money away from his job at the time to provide a certain woman with a certain lifestyle, right? Because she is a popular influencer as well, so everybody is familiar with the story, right? And as it goes, as he say, is, you see the woman, you like it, you like her, and you just go after what you want, right? Even though at the time she was with somebody else, right? He made his advances, which in itself is a topic, right? Because that would be considered adultery, right? But to continue on the topic for the day, right, which is, going out to your wits for woman, because now you put yourself in danger, because you wanted to spend on a body, so to speak, right? Let me get some scripture and then go back to some more commentary, right? This is First Esdras 4 and verse 13. It says, "Then the third, who had spoken of women and of truth, this was Zerubbabel, began to speak." 14, it says, "O ye men, is not the great king, nor the multitude of men, neither is it wine that excelleth. Who is in them that ruleth them, or had the lordship over them? Are they not women?" Right, because a lot of men, right, despite of their knowledge, their status, right, they still, let's say, submit to their woman, all right, or submit to a woman, right? So that's what Zerubbabel is saying here. Hey, it's not mighty men that excel it, nor is it wine, all right, nor is it the king, and all these things have a good argument for being the number one most influential thing, right? Because wine could influence you to do some crazy stuff. Alcohol, we see that all the time. Mighty men, right? They overthrow kingdoms, right? The king, everybody submit to the king, but here is it, he's making an argument that, hey, women could excel above all these things, all right? And that's because, weak men submit to women, all right? Verse 15, it says, "Women have borne the king and all the people that bear rule by sea and land. Even of them came they, and they nourished them up that planted the vineyards, from whence the wine cometh." Right? Yeah, and this is another thing with a lot of black men, so-called black men especially. They like to put women on a pedestal. All right? It starts with their mother, right? And then any other women that they somewhat respect or have a liking to, they put them on a pedestal, right? You constantly hear Jake say stuff like, "Hey, how do we come from woman?" Can't disrespect the woman, which in nobody saying that you have to disrespect women, right? But at the same time, women have a certain place, all right? 17, it says, "These also make garments for men. They bring glory unto men, and without women cannot men be," right? And you know, this is true, right? Without women, because the Most High put men and women on the earth to procreate, right? So, that's what I'm saying. Men have a role, women have a role, all right? However, what happens is that when you don't respect the order, right, you do crazy stuff like this, going out to your wits for women, right, to impress women, right? Because the order is that if she have another man, you need to leave that alone, right? That's the order, and this fella, he wasn't following orders, right? 18, yeah, and if men gather together gold and silver or any other godly thing, do they not love a woman which is comely in favor and beauty, right? So, the girl that he went after, all right, he spent all his money, she's generally regarded as very attractive, all right. Jake men, they like, girl with a big old booty, right? Some Jake men is into the red bone complexion, right? Which she is, she's a red bone with a fatty, right? And she's a quote unquote body, as they say nowadays, right? And when they initially got together, the whole country was watching. It feels like the whole world was watching. They was going on trips to Panama and here and there, all sort of vacations, right? Not knowing where the money was coming from, right? Or maybe she knew and didn't give a damn, right? But hey, nobody outside of that relationship didn't know, where this money was coming from. Y'all knew that this guy was an accountant, right? And we all know that he was terminated or resigned from the company because of this same situation, actually, right? There was being alleged at the time, which is early in 2025, that there was some misconduct in the accounts department, and he either was let go or he resigned, right? But now more is coming to the surface, right? Right, so yeah, you have to be careful. Don't let the don't let your desire, your lust rule over you, right? You should have a rule over it, right? Verse 19, it says, letting all those things go, they do not gape, and even with open mouth fix their eyes fast on her, and have not all men more desire unto her than unto silver or gold, or any godly thing whatsoever, right? Yeah, because some men actually desire women than anything else, and not just any woman, like I say, a body, right? Some jakes like them tall, some jakes like them short, whatever, right? But if that woman is consensuously, attractive, right? Some jakes cannot control themselves. Some men can't control themselves. right? Especially so-called black men, right? You find a lot with them, right? It even says that they will desire or more than silver and gold and any godly thing whatsoever, right? Desire them more than wisdom, desire or more than wisdom and knowledge, all right? More than money, you know. Some some men just want a attractive woman by the side because it feels like it raises their status, right? You know, which is crazy to be honest, right? You know, that's low vibrational thinking, right? You're not supposed to be thinking like that. What truly raises your status as a man is your knowledge, right? There's one, and then family, your household, right? And when I say knowledge, you know, it includes, all right, or it starts with getting to know Yahweh Ba'asham Yahweh Shai, right? You know, that's what knowledge begins with, right? And then door opens up everything else, right? You know, which as long as you know the Most High, Yahweh, and His Son Yahweh Shai, right? And you keep learning, you pretty much is gonna know everything, right? That's pretty much all you need to know. But hey, sir, some brothers, you know, some men like to learn about different things as well, right? But the whole point is that number one thing that gives you status in this life as a man is actually your relationship with the Most High, right? Which is the beginning of knowledge, as the scripture said, to know thee is knowledge, right? And then to have a family is way better than to have a body, all right? Don't get it twisted, right? All right, so don't desire these women just because they have a big old ass, right? Or a pretty face, right? Or that because a lot of men want them, you know? That is silly things to look upon, right? Yeah, verse 20 it says, a man leaveth his own father that brought him up and his own country and cleaveth unto his wife, right? Which is right, right? You know, a man should cleave to his wife and his wife cleave to him, right? You know, but you shouldn't forsake your father, right? Scriptures talk about it, you know? And some men will go as far as forsaking all morals for a woman, right? You would take her back if she cheats on him, right? You will let her to insult him, demasculate him, right? Just because you want the fat ass, right? Which is not supposed to be so. You know, as a man, that is weak thinking, right? Right, but let me jump a little bit and get some meat. Right, this is verse 24. It says, let me read from verse 23. It says, "Yeah, a man taketh his sword and go his way to rob and steal, to sail upon the sea and upon the rivers, and look it upon a lion and go it into the darkness. And when he had stolen and spoiled and robbed, he bringeth it to his love." Right, let me read the back. Right, it says, "Yeah, a man take his sword and go his way to rob and steal, to sail upon the seas and and upon rivers." Right? Yeah, so a man basically gonna do whatever for a woman that he quote unquote love. Right? And look it upon a lion and go it into the darkness. And when he had stolen, spoiled, and robbed, he bringeth it to his love. Right? Which is exactly what's going on with this fella here. Right? Allegedly, right? He stole money from the company. He robbed the company out of over 150 million. And doesn't matter which part of the world you are, that is a lot of money, right? 150 million. A lot of people don't work for the type of money in their lifetime, right? So that is not any easy amount of money, to be honest, right? But you know, again, allegedly, here he is spending this money on a woman, right? And like I said, this couple is a very famous, couple, influencer type thing, right? So everybody would see the gifts and the trips and these kind of things, right? Yep, it says, "Wherefore a man loveth his wife better than father and mother." Yeah, because, hey, some men wouldn't do, and even this fella, I sure he wouldn't do the things that he did for this woman, for his mother and father, which he probably don't have to, right? But the point is, a lot of men wouldn't do the same thing that they're doing for the father and mother. It's like that they're doing for their women, for their father and mother, right? Yea, many there be that run out of their wits for women and became servants for their sakes. Right? So you going out, you working, you hard earned salary, right? Or even, stealing and robbing, just to go and splurge it all on a woman, on a body, right? You became a servant unto her every intuition, you know. She might tell you something that like, hey, I really like this watch or this cologne. Next 2 weeks you go out and you buy it, you know, things like that. Right? There's a weak nature as a man, right? Verse 27, it says, "Many also have perished and erred and sinned for women." Right? Many have perished and erred and sinned for women. And let me say this, right? Even brothers, at some point of our life, we made these mistakes, right? You know, this is not just specific to this fellow or specific to anybody really, but men in general, right? Like me and the brothers was having a conversation, right? We were saying that, hey, every man in this truth and in this life in general, right? In this life in general, right? A woman actually is a part of your growth process if you choose to accept it, right? Because they're always gonna come a woman that you're gonna love a certain way or like a certain way, and she's basically gonna trample over you, right? But as a man, there's actually a learning process for you, right? That's one of your biggest learning lesson, right? But the thing is, some men don't learn from it, all right? Or they learn how to be even wickeder, right? And those what, and those lead to what? Those lead to you being perished or facing some form of punishment, all right? Because look at this fellow, he now is in police custody, right? As the story goes, to this day, he was arrested on the 24th of December, right? So he was in police custody for part of the 24th, the 25th, right? Which is so-called Christmas Day. I mean, we don't believe in Christmas, but I'm pretty sure you wanted to spend Christmas with, his love, But yeah, even his reputation, his image, his name is gonna take a hit because of things like this, Some people may not want to do business with him anymore, He may not get hired for an accountant role anymore, all right? Because even if they don't find him guilty, when these sort of allegations goes out, your image is deteriorated, right? Or if they find him guilty on any account of any sort of misconduct, right? His image is, destroyed even further. So it may not be hireable for another role as an accountant, As of right now, he's actually his business is a studio, a photo studio, right? And he's probably doing well right now, right? But even that is going to take a hit, So hey, again, just let this be a lesson, right? Just be careful with these women, right? Be careful with what your desire cause you to do for women as well, right? You shouldn't have an unhealthy obsession with a woman as a man. It's crazy. It's childish, right? Because ultimately, what the Most High put a woman on the earth for is to give you pleasure as a man, to bear your children, right? And to be a helpmate unto you, in no particular order, right? But yeah, those the main functions of a woman, right? And you could get those from any woman, right? And a general rule of thumb to follow is don't don't date the girl that you like, date the girl that likes you, right? Those be a way better dating experience for men, right? You know? But hey, in general, the courses are on all Israelite women, so-called black women, so-called Latinos, so-called Native Americans, Amerindians, Tainos, whatever they want to call them, right? So at the end of the day, the dating experience still is going to be hell. But if you date a woman that likes you, you're more likely to have a better time, all right, for the time that you with the woman, because a lot of these relationships don't last, all right. So there's another thing you should keep in mind, right? A lot of relationships nowadays don't last, all right. That's because these women never receive the teaching on how to be a woman, all right. Esau gave them all sort of fucked up theories, all right, that they're living with. A man should do this, a man should do that. If he's not happy, leave, which is not according to scripture, right? So with that, hopefully this lesson was edifying through the spirit and power of Yahweh, Ba'ashem, Yahweh Shai, Ba'ashem Akakodash. I want to give double honors to the apostles and elders of Great Millstone, and salutation to the awful elect. Once again, all praises, glory, and honor is due to Yahweh, Ba'ashem, Yahweh Shai, Ba'ashem Akakodash. I say shalom.